Hi everybody, this is Joel Kennedy with Kennedy Violins. So today's another play-along video, and today we are covering the Seitz Concerto No. 5, first movement from Suzuki Book 4. Okay, so this is a pretty long movement, so I'm just going to play a section at a time. So I'm going to play a section, then talk about that section, and then play the next section. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so the easy stuff first. We are in the key of D major, so that's two sharps, F sharp and C sharp. So our finger pattern is basically high 2 on the G, B natural, high 2 on the D, F sharp, high 2 on the A, that's our C sharp, then low 2 on the E, that's our G natural. I probably don't need to tell you that because if you're in book 4, you probably already know. So our time signature, we have cut time, right? So we've got that C for common time, but we got a line through it, right? So instead of 4/4, we're in 2/2. So we have 2 beats in a measure, the equivalent of 2 half notes per measure. So when we put our metronome on at our, performance speed, right, we're gonna have the metronome on the half note. Okay, so let's talk about the articulation a little bit. Now the opening, there's not a whole lot to talk about necessarily. Now this is a pretty long piece. It's pretty complicated. There's a lot of different sections, but I'm gonna try to keep the video not so long. So I'm gonna skip a lot of stuff. I'm just gonna talk about the stuff that is, students have the most difficult time with. Okay, so in the beginning it says resoluto, right? So I'm taking that to mean very kind of staunch, very kind of in your face, almost march-like. It's very kind of aggressive and it's kind of blocky, right? So I highly suggest for these first 2 notes, right, they're marked with accents. I suggest that you start from the string. So instead of, right, with your bow moving, you start with the bow stopped, right? That way you're really gonna have a very blocky, resolute sound. That's what I suggest anyways. Okay, now we've got quite a bit of dynamics going on, right? So we've got these, alligators, these dynamic markings like in the 4th, 5th measure, right? Where you crescendo and you diminuendo. That happens a lot. But those, so you will really want to pay attention to those to make this opening very interesting. But going back to those accents, I highly suggest as much as possible starting from the string because it does come back, right? And then the 5th measure, we have again, right? And then it goes into more of a legato section. So that's about all I can say about that is just really pay attention to those accents. Try to start from the string so your bow is not moving when you start the stroke. And make sure you really pay attention a lot to these dynamics. Okay, so let's look at the next section. Okay, and then in the next section, we have those triplets, okay? Now we're getting into a little bit trickier stuff, right? So we have these triplets, right? So more than likely you're gonna be better off playing these spiccato, but try not to really bounce your bow a lot. Really just focus on playing in the lower part of the bow. Try not to bounce your string so much. The less you try to bounce, the easier it's going to be, and keep your hand relaxed. But make sure it's in the lower part of the bow and you play short strokes. So practice it slowly. Right? Try not to. If you try to do that, you're just going to be frustrated. So just focus on playing them short and light when you're practicing them. Right? As you speed up, if you keep your hand relaxed, the bow will naturally want to spiccato. But like I said, try not to really try to spiccato. Try to practice them, play them short. Take your time when you're practicing to build up the speed, and then the spiccato will come. Just a light spiccato. Okay, so the next section, right? So again, stay in the lower part of the bow and make sure every time you have that up bow and that 3-note grouping, go back to the frog. Go back. So remember, every 3-note grouping needs to take up the same amount of bow, and it needs to occur in the same part of the bow every time. And the trick to that is to make sure your up bow takes you back down. Down, 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 down. Okay, then you just build up the speed. Okay, so now for these double stops, we're gonna play these big. So as is typical with 3-note double stops in a lot of the stuff in Suzuki, we're gonna play it 2 and 2. So, right, so we open D, open A, then open A, first finger on the E, F sharp. Just practice it, just like that. Then short, except play it in tune. Okay, so let's go on to the next section. Rest, rest, rest. Okay, so that's that. Let's talk about this section a little bit. So again, with our articulation, we really want to make a big difference between the short notes, the long notes, and really pay attention to our accents. So again, we have the, at the beginning, just, that's just like the beginning, right? So try to start from the string. Then we have, right? So those have those tenuto markings above them. So we want those notes to be separate, but not too short. We're just going to give them a little push. And then what do you know? It puts you right in the lower part of the bow for those short notes. And I shift here. Diminuendo, 2, 3, rest, rest. Right, so this is a different kind of character. It's very long, and try to play it as beautifully as you can. Long. These are long, so we wouldn't do. We do. Right? Now we have a break, right? A lot of times these are called railroad tracks. So these railroad tracks indicate that we are now changing character. So we're going from a piano, break, right? Now we change character. So now we got our accents, we're forte, and then we've got some, a lot of accents on these A's, right? So, okay, so with these sections, you really have to plan your bow strokes out really, really well. So this line and the next line and the next line, my big suggestion, well, I have a lot of them, but One of them is make sure you plan your bow strokes out very well. So for example, if we go to the third measure of the second to last line, right? So now we know we got a forte coming up and a crescendo, so we're going to want to go work our way towards the frog. And then we want these to be as low as we can get in the bow so we can keep them short, right? Sorry. Right, try to be low in the bow. Try to be low in the bow. Low in the bow. Right? So when we have these short notes or triplets, we've got to be in the lower part of the bow. So plan your bow out really well. Go to the frog. Go to the frog. Go to the frog. Frog. Don't go too high in the bow because these short notes will be too difficult. So right? So it's kind of tough not to go too high in the bow there on that down bow before your fourth finger. So you really have to pay attention. Try not to go too, now I'm here, but I'm going to work my way a little bit little lower in the bow. Right? I think I played a wrong bowing there. But anyways, hopefully you get the idea, right? So this section is all about bow distribution and bow planning, right? The articulation, of course, is really important. The dynamics, of course, are really important. But plan out that bow. You want long bow? Right? This whole section's low, but then when we get into the aggressive section, this, they don't have a name for it, but the aggressive section, make sure you plan your bow out so you can be in the lower part of the bow. Okay, let's look at the next section. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so for this section, really all you're doing is it's about Tranquilo e dolce, right? So it's sweet and tranquil, right? So we want to try to keep our vibrato going the entire time if we can. Try as best you can to vibrato every note, assuming you have vibrato. If you don't, well, work on it. But that's our goal anyways, is to vibrato every note. Now, the other thing is, this changes character. So we're going to change our sound. We're not going to do, right? It's not that. It's tranquillo e dolce. So, right? So we change character, maybe turn your bow a little bit on the side, try to change the sound. Really pay attention to your dynamics. Keep your vibrato going the entire way and make sure that you use your entire bow. Make sure you use your entire bow when you have these fortes. Okay, so let's look at the next section. Okay, and that's that. Okay, so this section is if you really intend on playing it spiccato instead of staccato. Well, it's a lot more challenging, that's for sure. But regardless of whether you want to play it staccato or spiccato, you're really going to be in the same part of the bow. So how successful you are with it, well, it depends on how much you practice and how relaxed your right hand is. But again, just like some of the other sections, you're going to be using basically this much bow. You're going to be right down here, right? Right? And try not to bounce so much. Just try to keep the notes short and relaxed. And don't be afraid to practice one measure at a time, you know. Some of these measures are more difficult than others for the bowing. So don't be afraid to break it down. So that one's pretty easy, but that one might be harder. Or so the last measure of the fourth line from the bottom, actually fifth line from the bottom, sorry, last measure. Just practice it by itself. So the string crossings make it more difficult. So the trick is, if you're having difficulty with the section, practice it by itself. Practice it with the metronome, slow it down, and then build up the speed, right? Because, and if you have difficulty with the string crossings while you're doing your short bows, your staccato or spiccato, well, it's because your hand is tightening up, right? Your hand is getting tight in anticipation for those string crossings that, you know, maybe you don't do so well. So the trick is to know, uh-oh, my hand is going to tighten up. Probably going to be my pinky, probably going to be in my index finger. Relax those fingers. You know, when you have a difficult section. Right? Okay, then the rest of it is pretty self-explanatory. That's not very big deal. Okay. Okay, so for this section, okay, second line from the bottom, first measure. Right? You know, just remember to stand your fingers up. So you're playing with the open E, right? If you're having any difficulty with that at all, like your second finger or your fingers want to touch the open E, just remember, stand your fingers up, right? Trim your nails and move your elbow over. Your elbow goes over to the right. As you're looking at it, you're looking down your violin, your elbow goes over. That's going to stand your fingers up. So that's three things. Stand your fingers up, trim your nails, and move your elbow over. Okay? So then in the end, we have some accents that are important. So when you have this figure, the first measure of the last line. So make sure you're in the lower part of the bow. Stay in the lower part of the bow because you have those short notes. So then that sets you up for being lower in the bow for your end. Right? Okay, so for these double stops, I guess one word of advice I could give you is keep your first finger down. So you see how it goes. 1, 1. So we're doing 1 by itself on the D, then 1 by itself on the A with the E. So 1 by itself on the D, then 1 on the A with the open E. Right? Just keep your first finger down. Don't because it won't work, right? So place your first finger in the middle of the A and the D string, right? Just like a fifth, right? So then same thing, you got that fifth. And for fifths, remember, you got to stand your finger up. Don't play with your finger down. You're not playing on the pad, you're playing on the tip. Okay, so that was the quick and dirty on this piece. Normally I would have at least 2 lessons on this, probably spend, I don't know, an hour and a half or something. So this is a quick lesson, but just remember, dynamics are really important, accents are really important. Practice the sections by themselves and practice them slow and then build them up. So for the spiccato stuff, keep your right hand really relaxed and know that if you're having difficulty with the string crossings when you're doing spiccato, it's because your hand is getting tight. Just practice loosening it when you have those string crossings. And that's about it, right? This piece is all about organization in your mind. Organization and practicing small parts and then putting the small parts together. That's really what this piece is. So let's throw the dart at the dartboard of destiny here. I forgot to announce that at the beginning of this video. And we're going to find out what the song is for next week. Now remember, we're doing a Suzuki series, and the dartboard back there tells us what our song is for next week. And we're running out of songs. Oh, don't forget to like and subscribe as well, right? We're trying to get to 50,000. We're super close, all right? So let's do the dart. Okay, I have my weapon in hand. Let's see what piece there is for next week. We've done all the book 4 ones, so I know there's no book 4s coming up. Okay, so, all right, not too bad. Okay, book 3 Humoresque. Book 3 Humoresque, that's a really fun one, I believe. That's one of my favorite songs to teach, actually. Okay, so next week, book 3 Humoresque. So, hope the video helped, guys. Hey, if you have any questions or comments or whatever, put them in, put them down below, because I do answer the comments. And a lot of times, if you guys have questions, I put them in a video. I make a video out of your questions. So, don't forget to tune in next week. Thanks for watching, and have a great time practicing.